Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is going to be my breakdown of the 11 Rumble power-ups ranked in order. I'll start with my worst one and then all the way up to what I think is the best one. And you might disagree with some of my placements, but I'm using pretty much my own games so far this season in ranked Rumble, as well as previous games that I've casted for Rumble 1v1 predominantly, just to come up with a list and rank all of the power-ups, either B, A, S or S plus class, depending how effective I think they are and how effective I think they can be, because obviously Rumble Ranked is still pretty new and people are still getting to grips with everything. So don't panic if you see any of these in the position that you completely disagree with. This is probably subject to change after new ways to use various power-ups become discovered and people become better and better at Rumble Ranked. But for the time being, these are how I see these power-ups. So starting off with my first power-up that I've put in the B class, and that is the Swapper. It does have a few good uses, the most obvious one being that if you swap with an opponent who is using the spikes to manipulate the ball, then you're going to appear where they are and they're going to appear where you are without having the ball with them. So you've broken their spikes essentially. That's very useful, of course. But that's very rare that you're going to be able to do that. You need to have swap, and an opponent has to have spikes and also have the ball, and you need to be in a good position to swap them, all happening at once. So although situational, it's still very, very unlikely to happen. You do mainly want to use this power up as soon as you get it. It's not really worth holding on to, in my opinion. So usually if I get this and there's no imminent danger or no easy shot for me to take staring me in the face, if there's not much happening, I'll just drive towards a wall, and as soon as I'm about to get to the top of the wall, so my car's going to curve around and then fall off the ceiling, you want to swap with an opponent who's on the ground, and it's got a very long range. Actually, this is one of the strongest things about the Swapper as an item, or as a power-up, is that the range of this thing is ridiculous. You can swap with an opposing team's goalie while you're driving up the back, or not the back wall, but the side wall near your, or in your half. So it does have good range on it. And if you can swap with an opponent who's on the ground, and you can get them to swap into a position where they're going to be falling off the ceiling, that's them out of the game for a little bit of time. So you have improved your chances of being the next team to score, at least a little bit. This does have a little bit of offensive capability as well. You can wait for your team to be counter-attacking, and if there's a solo defender for the opposition, you can just swap with him for an easy goal. Just be careful not to swap too late, or you will block the shot upon arriving in his position. If you've waited until he's jumped up to make a tackle, then you're just going to appear and tackle your teammate. So it's, again, very difficult to use this power-up. I think it's probably the weakest right now, and that's why I've put it in the B class category. Next up, also B class power-up, I think. Slightly better than the Swapper, but still one of the worst ones, and one of the power-ups that you want to be using quickly after you get it, and that is the Disruptor. Although this might be a great power-up in a 1v1 situation where you can just dribble the opponent, or up to the opponent, disrupt them so they go flying out of their goal and then walk the ball into their net. In 3v3 it just doesn't have as much practical application. It does have a few good counters though. You can screw up somebody who's trying to go for a magnet dribble. You can make them go so fast that they actually accelerate away from the ball, and the magnet that they have is no longer applying any influence on the ball. You can screw up players who are going for aerials. You can screw up players who are trying to carry the ball out of defense on top of their car. So you can use this well. The fact that you have to target them by looking at them does make this a little bit harder to use, just like the Swapper previously. But yeah, there are definitely more, I would say, easy ways to make this power up a net positive than the Swapper, for example. And you also don't need to take yourself out of position briefly to use it effectively, which I think is a big bonus. There are a few things you definitely don't want to do. One of those things is do not disrupt spikes users. If an opponent is spiking the ball, you don't want to disrupt him because he's just going to fly up and start spinning around all the way into your goal. So avoid that at all costs, and do not disrupt boost-starved opponents, because if you disrupt them, you've not only given them super speed so they can recover back into position, but when they get back into position, they're going to have 100 boosts. So you've given them a way back into the game pretty much. Alright, let's move on to the last power-up that I've put in the B class category, and that is the Tornado. This one I'd put somewhere close to the Disruptor in terms of usefulness. I'm not sure which I prefer at the moment. The reason why I think the Tornado is all the way down here, and again, one of the power-ups you want to be using pretty much as soon as you get it, just so you can have a better chance of getting a more influential power-up next time, is that you can't really make too many offensive plays on this with this one on the ball. The only way you can really be reliably useful in attack is to just play like a blocker kind of for one of your teammates, just drive ahead of him and sweep all of the opponents out the goal. You do need to be quite accurate with this because it's not got the largest range. It does stretch out a little bit away from your car, and once you catch somebody, they are pretty screwed. But you've got to be careful to not let them drive past you, or else you've been useless. And if you try to make a play on the ball, you can sort of carry it around by dribbling on right or driving right underneath it. But it's difficult to be accurate with that. I've seen it be just as much of a problem and screw over teammates just as often as I've seen it be a net positive. You're going to screw over opponents by dribbling the ball randomly, but you're also going to mess your teammates up. So that's why I've got it down here. Another one that you want to be using pretty much as soon as you get it at the first opportunity that you can, and then hopefully you'll get a chance to get a better one later on. So let's move on to my first power up that I've put in the A class. This is certainly better, I think, than all three that have come before it, and that is the Boot. This is another one of these targeted power ups on an opposition car, which is a drawback in my opinion because you have to be looking at them, which is not always good when you want to be looking at the ball as well. But it is much stronger versus several of the other power ups which are very strong offensively, namely the Boot is very good against somebody who's trying to dribble the ball in or air dribble the ball into your net with the Spikes power-up, or the Magnet power-up is very good at screwing them over. It's also a good way of knocking somebody away from the ball. If you can see that they're lining up a shot with the power hitter, then you can just knock them away. Also very good at just stopping an opponent who's lining up any shot. They might not even have the power hitter, but you can knock them away from the ball anyway. And again, dribblers. You can screw over a dribbler by just knocking them away with the Boot. So lots of good defensive application. The range on this one is much shorter than the Swapper, for example. It's somewhere, I think the Disruptor and the Boot have got a similar short range, so you do need to be quite close to your opponent to hit them. Careful not to drive too far away. And it does have more, I would say, offensive capability than the Disruptor. Both can be used to on a goalkeeper or on someone in the opposition team who's holding position in defense to try and screw up their position. But the Boot is more of it's easier to time, I would say, because you don't want to wait until the last second to disrupt someone, because then they might already be facing the ball. They might already be facing the way they want to be going. But the Boot you can use at the absolute last second to kick a goalie into his own net and allow your teammate to score. So very, very useful in certain situations. Alright, next power up that I've got in the A category is the Grappling Hook, and this one is I think the reason I can't put it any higher is although it has got, again, very, very strong use in some situations, in other situations it's completely useless, and in a very few situations it can be super bad. If you use the Disruptor or the Grappling Hook, sorry, on a ball that's up in the air and you think, yeah, I could go for this, I'll Grappling Hook towards this ball and maybe I'll be able to knock it on target to the other team's net, you need the ball to stay where it is the entire time that you're grappling towards it, and you don't move very fast with the Grappling Hook. And if the ball moves, you might end up just knocking it in the complete wrong direction. So people can outplay you very easily when they see you grappling hooking towards the ball. That's the reason I can't put it any higher here. I would say it's more of a defensive power up than an offensive one. It's a good way to tackle Spikes users, dribblers, Magnet dribblers. It's a good way to save power hits, Plunger shots, Haymaker shots that you might not otherwise have had the necessary acceleration to get up and save in an awkward spot. And it can also be used offensively. You can fly up for an aerial, which would otherwise be a super tight angle and you wouldn't be able to get much power on it, and you could just fly a little bit past the ball and then Grappling Hook straight back into it for really, really surprising power and get shots that you might not otherwise be capable of. The other thing that's worth mentioning is if you do Grappling Hook towards the ball without jumping, your dodge is still intact, just like a ceiling shot, just like any flip reset. You didn't jump into the air, so you have your dodge for an unlimited amount of time, and you can use that as you reach the ball for extra precision, a little bit more accuracy, maybe a little bit more power. So there are a lot of positives here. It's just such a situational power up that, again, I would tend to use it at the earliest possible convenience. You don't really want to be holding on to this one. Unless maybe if you're winning a game, then I could see it, because it's much more of a defensive power up, I think, or a lot better in defense in 3v3 than it is in offense. Okay, now my last power up that I've put in the A category might come as a surprise to some people, and that is the spikes, or the spike. I don't know what it's, if it's plural or singular. And although this might seem like the most powerful power up at the lower levels, and when you're playing against people who don't really know how to aerial and don't really know how to aim their other power ups very well, and you're just getting scored on by people driving into your net with the ball attached to them, you will realize as you get better and better at Ranked Rumble that there's lots of ways to counter the spikes, and a lot of power ups that just hard counter spikes. So it's still very strong. I'd say it's definitely in the top half in terms of power level, but I don't put it at an S just because you have to be so close to the ball to make it useful. If you don't catch the ball on the top of your car, you're just forced to drive in a straight line, or sometimes wobble along as the ball is stuck to the underside of your car. And if you do get the ball moving, you might be running out of boost and you can't really make a big play on it. But if you do, obviously you can score some pretty nice air dribbles with the magnet if the stars align and nobody has a power up that can screw you over. So obviously it is one of the better power ups offensively. Not that good in defense though. That's why I've put it down here. It's not going to stop a good plunger shot, a good haymaker shot, a good power hitter shot. It's not going to stop just any old shot that's out of reach of a normal car. So it gains no positives, no positives from those. The one thing I do want to give it a little bit of plus for is that you can flick the ball at the very end when your spikes are about to run out and get some really cool looking shots. So there is that benefit to the spikes to work towards. That's more useful again in a 1v1 situation, not as much in 3v3 where people are just going to be gunning for you. So let's move on to the S class power ups, and the first one of those that I'm going to put in here is the Magnetizer. Or is it the magnet? I can't remember. I think it's a Magnetizer is what Sounds have decided to call this one. And the reason I've put this one into S and ahead of the spikes is because you don't need to touch the ball for it to work. So you can engage it a little bit further away from the ball, and it's a little bit less predictable where the ball is going to go. If you fly up into the air and start doing a magnet air dribble, I think it's much harder to stop than a spikes air dribble. But that's just my experience. You guys are welcome to disagree with that if your past experience differs. It is good at stopping. Well, it can be good to stop an opponent who's using their own magnet, or an opponent who's spiking the ball. If you're close enough to them, you can steer them off target or pull them back away from your goal. That's really pretty much the only defensive application you're going to get. It's just not powerful enough on use to stop a haymaker, a plunger, a power hitter shot, or just any good power shot from a normal car in Rocket League. So the fact that it's not as good defensively as others means that I have to put it in S. I can't give it an S plus here. But still one of the better power-ups, and yeah, it's okay to hold on to this one. I would say we're getting into the power-ups now that it's worth holding on to if you do get it. I'd say Spikes also has that same sort of appeal. If you get it, and everybody seems to be using their power-ups, go on, hold on to it. Maybe you'll get a chance to make a big play. Alright, next S rank power-up I've got is the Power Hitter. Similar sort of weaknesses to the Spikes and the Magnetizer, and those are that you need to be really close to the ball to make it work, and they don't really have that much use defensively. However, the bonus to the Power Hitter is you become an absolute wrecking ball. You can just drive into opponents and demo them, so that's super good for obvious reasons. And if you wait until the very last second before you take a shot or a clear, you can catch people off guard and boom the ball really, really hard straight into their net from pretty much anywhere on the field. So it's very good offensively if you can get close to the ball. And if you're off the ball, you can just drive around demoing people, and it's a super, super strong power up for that. The weakness, though, for the Power Hitter, and the reason I can't put it in S+, is that the timer for the next power up you're going to get only comes once you've used your entire Power Hitter duration, which is not good. That's going to take a while to regenerate another power up compared to to compare to others. So when you see it, again, you want to use it early. You don't really want to be hanging on to it forever. I'd say Spike's Magnetizer Power Hitter, although they can be really, really good and they can get you goals, you don't want to hold on to them too long, because people are going to get better power-ups than you, and they're going to hit the ball past you, and there's nothing you can do. Alright, so I think the most underrated power-up, and my last S-rank power-up, is going to be the Freezer. And the reason why I put this one so high, and I think the third best power-up, is because it is so good for stopping Haymaker shots, power hitter shots. It's good for stopping magnet air dribbles. It even holds Plunger shots in place briefly before the Plunger starts pulling the ball again from a standstill. And also, the Freezer will break spikes. So if somebody's spiking the ball and you freeze it, the ball will probably take a hit after you've frozen it, but at least they're not going to be fully in control of the ball by spiking onto it. It's going to break the ball away from their car. It's also incredibly good at stopping opponents or throwing them off if they're going for an aerial, and it can be great for mind games. It can even be used to steal goals. If you use it right as the ball is crossing the line, you can get a goal steal. So that's an obvious plus in my books. But yeah, this is, I think, the most underrated power-up. Incredibly good in defense, incredibly good at just controlling a play when everybody else is haymakering and plunging and power hitting the ball and there's no control. Just freeze it and then get a little reset in there. Be careful not to go for too many risky aerial plays after freezing the ball, though, because you might think, oh sweet, I've frozen the ball, now I can just go up for it and aerial it for free. But if you've not been counting the power-ups, somebody might have a power-up and beat you to it, and that goes for pretty much any aerial in Rumble. You got to be careful before you fly up into the air. Make sure that nobody's just going to beat you to it with one of these cheeky power-ups. Well, alright, let's get into the top two, and the power-up that I think ranks at number 2 in the S+ category. It's so hard to decide, but I think I would have to go for the Haymaker as number 2. It's one of the best power-ups for sure, and if you get this power-up or the one that follows, I think it's worth holding on to until the stars align. Just wait until the perfect possible moment to use it. This is one of the best ones you can get, and re-rolling there's not really any point in it. So you can use it right after you hit the ball for some of the most powerful shots you're ever going to see. That's if you hit the ball in one direction and then you haymaker it straight away afterwards. It's going to go flying. In fact, so fast that if you've got the ball, any bounce on the ball, it's pretty much going to go over the net, even cross pitch. So you've got to keep it on the deck if you're going to do that. It's a good finisher for open nets that would otherwise be out of reach. Good for epic saves that would otherwise be out of reach. It does not, however, break spikes. That's one of the weaknesses of Haymaker, is if you Haymaker a ball that is spiked by an opponent, it will do nothing. That doesn't really make sense in my opinion, but for now that's the way it is, so you've got to keep that in mind. And it also does not hit the ball very hard if it is rolling towards you. You can kind of stop the ball, but if the ball's rolling towards you, you don't really get any power on it when you Haymaker it. You just kind of stop it dead. It's a much better power up for hitting the ball in a direction that it's already going. It gets it to go really fast. But yeah, Haymaker, one of the best power-ups. It just lets you do things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do by reaching further. And the power that you can get on this thing is absolutely insane, so I have to put it in S+. But the best power-up, and the one that I'm putting S+, but I think my favourite, my rank 1 power-up in Rumble, for Rumble ranked 3v3, is the Plunger. It just has to be the Plunger. It's so powerful when you're downfield of the ball and you just hit this power-up. It activates so quick that people hardly have any time to react, and the ball accelerates so quickly that you can score goals, bouncing them into the net. You can redirect the ball into the net. If you see it's off target slightly, you can pull it in. If the ball is at all near the opposition goal, you could just drive into their goal and activate the Plunger, and it's going to pull the ball in, most likely. However, just like the Haymaker, it's more effective in adding power to the ball rather than changing its direction completely. So do bear that in mind. If the ball is moving really fast past you, over your head, and you use the Plunger, you're more likely just going to slow the ball down, or maybe bring it to a standstill, maybe turn it around very, very slowly. It's not going to bounce straight back in the opposite direction like you might expect. It doesn't act like a spring sort of thing. It's trying to pull you towards. The one thing I did actually forget is that if an opponent uses a grappling hook, you can really screw them over with power-ups like the Plunger, the Haymaker. You can pull the ball into position and kind of make them hit it in a way that they didn't really want to. So that's another bonus for these. They happen so quickly compared to power-ups like the grappling hook, and you can activate them from range, unlike the power hitter, the Magnetizer, and the spikes. So they're just on another level, in my opinion. You kind continue pulling a ball after it's been frozen. Like if you Haymaker or if you Plunger the ball rather, and somebody freezes it, your Plunger will continue pulling it, although the freeze will have slowed it down briefly, so you're not going to get as much power that way. And probably the coolest way you can score with a Plunger is going downfield and pulling the ball towards yourself, so that you can then redirect it into the net. You sort of do a passing play with yourself. That's very difficult to do, but very, very cool if you can. Or, you know, all these pendulum plays where you're swinging the ball into the net. They're also pretty nice. So the Plunger's got to be the best one. I think if you get that, no point in wasting it. You need to make it count. Same with Haymaker. Even Freezer, you can't be wasting these. Power hitter, Magnetizer, spikes, yes, they're very strong. So if you see a situation coming up that you can use them, hold on to them. But if you don't, I would say just get them, use it at the earliest possible convenience, and then every other power up you want to be using it as early as possible, without screwing over yourself or your team, just so that you can hopefully re-roll a better one and continue helping your team along to victory. But yeah, that's my ranking of the Rumble power-ups, and please do let me know if you've disagreed with any of my placements or any of my reasoning for any of my placements. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on them. If I've missed out on any tips and tricks on these, and I've not talked about some of the key ways to use them or to counter them, then I'd love to know that as well, because I'm probably going to make a guide, or not necessarily a tutorial, but like sort of a strategy video on Rumble Ranked, since it is a thing now. I'm going to be doing that with all of the new rank modes, all the new sports rank modes, so you've got that to look forward to if you're a fan of the new sports modes like me. This was power-up specific, but when next time I make a video about Ranked Rumble, it will be just all overarching strategy, everything, not just related to power-ups. So I'm probably gonna take a bit longer to script that one and think about what content I want to put in it. But again, big thanks to you guys for watching this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow with another one, and until then, I'll see you next time.